they didn't activate yet. But for volume 2, 3, and 4, when you click, you will see that there is a download book PDF, and you can download for free. It will be available until October 15, so mid-October, you can do it. So you are not forced to do in this moment. And I think that in a few minutes, I hope, also the book number 1 can be downloaded. So it has been solved. Thank you very much.
I don't have any other news to give. The title of the talk, computational, is close to the computational technical problem that we are experiencing. Okay? Just some seconds, not minutes. And we are missing Felipe. But, oh my God. Okay, we can start, sorry. I missed you. Okay. Sorry for the late starting, but I'm honored to introduce Felipe Núñez. Is it right, my pronunciation?
Excellent.
Okay. He holds a PhD in political science and a master's degree in statistics from the University of California at Los Angeles. He is a professor of political communication, elections, and methodology at this university. He is a director of the Center for Legislative Studies and the International Center for Public Management and Development. He received the American Political Science Association Best Methods Poster Award and the UCLA Swar Prize for Best Doctoral Dissertation in 2013. It's a pleasure for me to let the stage to Felipe, and I'm sure that it will be a very inspiring talk.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. Sorry for the delay. I haven't been speaking in English for so long now, so if you don't understand me, I'm sorry. The idea here is to talk to you in a very different way. I mean, this is a conversation about interaction, right? So I'm a political science major, right? So it's hard for me to be here. I'm not sure if I'm the best keynote speaker for this kind of conference. So I'll try to do my best to convince you about this. Today, we will be talking about computational political science. This is a completely new area in which we are exploring, right? Not only in Brazil, but also outside here. And it's a very promising area. My students from UFMG and from abroad are very excited about the possibility of working together with computer scientists, AI kind of technology, and what I'll be trying to do today is to demonstrate to you some of the work that I am coordinating in Brazil in the company that I founded here, Quest. It's an intelligence house data kind of polling. We do polls, we do data analysis. But what we really like to do is what we learned recently in the interaction that political science and computer science have that we're doing kind of together, right? Here are some of the examples of what we're doing. These books are right now the most important books on computational political science. And every day in my company, Quest, we read those books, discuss those books, we interact with universities, we talk to professors, researchers about the work they're doing, we read academic papers. So the interaction for us, it's really, really important, right? So Raquel, thank you for the invitation to be here. So let me start showing you some of the work we are developing there, just to give you an example of what you're doing. This dashboard you guys are seeing here show to you the an exercise to classify voters in terms of their values, identities, and attitudes in this state, Minas Gerais. So what we do is we run a very large poll. We interviewed more than 10,000, in this case, Mineiros, so voters from Minas Gerais. And using a battery of different experimental survey technology, we identify what they see, how they see their lives, how they feel their lives, their values, their attitudes, so we can classify them in these 9 different segments, right? Using cluster analysis technology, statistical technology, we can then put them together. So in Minas, for example, most of Mineiros are Christian conservatives. It's the second line in the screen. And this is a very important finding, because after we define that, political parties can understand who they have to target in their campaigns, right? So this is one example. So large poll, statistical technology, and cluster analysis, machine learning, to try to disentangle who the Mineiros are. The second example I'd like to start this talk showing you is the Q Insider. This technology we developed last year to monitor WhatsApp groups, right? So I don't know if you all are aware of that, but in Brazil, most of what we do is in WhatsApp, right? We exchange messages all the time. Probably some of you are doing that right now in the audience, because it's hard to avoid. And so what we decided to do was create some technology to grab the information that users are sharing in their WhatsApp groups, and we classify using machine learning the topics, the sentiment, so the valence of the discussion, and in real time we can show, for example, how Brazilians reacted to Bolsonaro's trial during the last week. So we can do that like in real time. It's very fascinating. The other example is we're using also cluster analysis, secondary data, official data. We put together a model that classify who are the voters based on their not only voter ID, but also where they live. This is the map of São Paulo. In this map, you're seeing the most blue areas are Bolsonaro voters. So if you want to avoid them, don't go to these places. If you like them, that's the right place to have lunch, right? Right here, that's the best place to find Bolsonaristas in São Paulo. If you prefer to have lunch with Lulistas, my suggestion is to go like here, in this very red point in the city, right? So why is that important? In the United States, the electoral system is it's a single-member district, right? Which means that you have small districts that vote to elect House representatives, or they have to vote for presidents, right? And then Americans elect delegates, and the delegates elect the president. In Brazil, we don't have that. Every vote counts the same way, doesn't matter in which district it is. But it's very important nowadays to understand where are the voters who can be convinced. Because what we have realized so far is that the majority of Brazilians are already calcified in terms of their preferences, right? So when we see areas like these very blue areas or this very red area, what I'm trying to show with this kind of modeling and mapping all these identities is, don't spend your time trying to convince this blue area or this red area. They have made their minds already. So, if you have to focus your energy, go to the swing areas in the municipalities. So in order to answer those kind of questions and help partisans to choose their strategy, you need to do computational political science, stuff like that. So lots of data. The other tool that we developed at Quest, again using academic technology and wisdom, was the impact testing. It's a tool in which you send a video to the platform, and in 10 minutes you have a feedback about which part of the video calls more the attention of your audience. How we do that? We combine AI, right? Because here is the opposite. So AI, so half of the sample use AI to screen the video. Half of the sample is actually evaluating in real time if they are enjoying or not the video. So you can see the best part of the video, the worst part, and then we show to them retention, which means if your video really is working well or not. Why is that important? Because everybody now likes to record videos. Doesn't matter if you are a politician, if you are a brand market, or if you are someone like us, professors, researchers, students, journalists. We need to record videos, right? And this tool helps you understand if you're doing it well in a way that your audience can call your attention. This is something that I like. We just released this tool. It's another example of computational political science. What we're doing here is social listening every day. And in this social listening, we capture the approval of the government, Brazilian government in general, using social network data. So right now, Brazilians are not very happy with the government. You can see here the red line is above the blue line, which means the approval, the digital approval, it's bad for Lula at this time. If you look in the map, the north and northeast are the best areas in which Lula has approval. The southeast and the south of Brazil, not very well. But when we compare candidates, this red line is Lula, the blue line is Tarcísio. You can see that even not so well evaluated, as I showed before, Lula still has the chances of winning the election more than his main competitor right now, which is the governor of São Paulo, right? So this dashboard is the 5th dashboard I showed today. It's another example of how we use computational political science right now to try to help normal voters, society, journalists, politicians to understand what's going on. And this is the last tool I'm going to show you today, and then I'm going to demonstrate some of the models that we run. This is the last tool we are developing. This is not out yet, so you're seeing in real-time development. This is in our lab. So at Quest, what we do is we maintain a lab that runs innovations every day. So it's, I call them my minions. They are all the day like in the lab trying to run something new. And it's great because last week they showed that to me. I love that idea. What they're doing right now is we are screening all YouTube videos and we are classifying which kind of content each video showed to us. And based on the technology they developed using machine learning, they can tell us where in the video someone mentioned your name. So the reason why I love that is because I can follow what Brazilians are talking about in terms not only politics, which is our main goal, but also about what we're talking about in our daily lives. So brands, universities, I mean, everybody can use this kind of technology to say, look, right now, the agribusiness doesn't like you very much in this example, whereas the extreme right is the most supporters of you. And here I'm talking about Bolsonaro. I just run this analysis last night, so you can see most of the valence for Bolsonaro in the red line is bad in the last days. We're talking about more than 200, oh my gosh, I don't know how to say that in English because it's so big. 200 million views or something like it's huge, right? So it's more than Brazil because we have 200 million voters. We're talking about way more views in almost 1,000 channels in YouTube. So again, the reason why I spent so much time in this beginning explaining to you all that is to show that as a political scientist and a methods guy, because I was trained in the US to run programs, algorithms, create statistical models. My goal when I came back to Brazil was to create a place where we can play with methodology, we can create innovation using computational political science, and at the same time we can be useful for society, helping, as I said, politicians and voters to understand what's going on. So these are some of the examples of how we use computational political science, and I want to demonstrate to you all one example. This is my favorite one, and the reason is when I was doing my PhD in the United States, that was 2013, I received a call from a minister of Brazilian government asking me if I wanted to help him understand what was going on in Brazil. For you who were not from here, in 2013, we had something like our Arab Spring kind of moment. So July of 2013, Brazilians went to the streets to demonstrate and say that they were not happy with government because the government was bringing the World Cup to Brazil, but they were not taking care of health, education, and all that, right? So large demonstrations, and the government was not prepared for what was happening. They didn't have technology to understand in real time what was going on. So I received that call. I was in my office at UCLA, and I was shocked. I was like, wow, my gosh, I thought I was just, my main challenge was to defend my dissertation. which was hard. But then I discovered that not. Harder than that is to help the government to understand what was going on in Brazil. So yes, I accepted the invitation. I told my wife, you know what, a trip to Brazil, not bad right now. I was in the United States for 6 years, then doing my PhD, and then I was hired as professor at UCSD. And she said, okay, so we came to Brazil, and I started working with FIFA, so the World Cup, and Brazilian government to try to understand the patterns of behavior of Brazilians in terms of politics. And the main question I had to answer that time was this one: what's the difference between social listening and surveys? Because in my area, in political science, we have run surveys for 100 years now, right? The first big survey we run was in the United States, was in the beginning of the last century. But surveys are expensive. It's hard to do. Oh my gosh, a Cruzeirense entering in the auditorium, that's so bad. I'm so sad. You know, yesterday we had a very important game in Brazil, Atlético, my team, and Cruzeiro, his team, and we lost. We lost so bad, and I hate that. So congratulations on the victory. But again, so surveys are very expensive, and I had to create some technology that were able to help the government to understand quickly what was going on. They couldn't wait like 5 days until a survey is finished to make decisions. So in order to answer that question, I had to define to them the difference in, to answer the question I just posed to you, the best representation I found was this one. Surveys are based on representative samples. Social listening is based on a biased universe, right? Why is biased? It's biased because, you know, you don't go on Twitter or X right now to, you know, make compliments about people. You just go there to, you know, say that you're not happy with something. The problem with that is when you only listen to the ones who are willing to complain, you probably create a biased idea about what was going on. So you spend a lot of time solving crises that are not crises, right, anymore. So the way I demonstrated to them this idea was, imagine this is the population of Brazil. I'm sorry. So imagine this is the population of Brazil. You have the red ones, the black ones, the blue ones, each of these. So the blue ones love the government, the red ones hate the government, the black ones, they don't care, right? They just live their life, they just watch games, play soccer, drink beer, and all that. So in a survey, what we do is we collect a representative sample of that population, making sure that all the preferences of society are represented in the sample, right? In social listening, this is what we do. Because the only data available is the polarized data, right? Only the ones who hate the most and love the most are available. The ones who are drinking beer at home, they don't spend time commenting politics in social media, right? Sometimes they like to comment, you know, about soap opera, some movie, some about places they like, or cats, they think it's beautiful, but not about politics. But they have their opinions, they will vote. So how we fix that? The way to fix that was I presented to them an idea in 2014 that then I used during the presidential election. So my life was a little bit crazy. I was a professor at the United States that came back to Brazil, invited to help during the World Cup, but then they said, no, you have to stay a little bit more. We need you in the campaign. I was like, what, really? Political science are that useful? I thought it was just like teachers and professors at school, but not. We can do that as well if we know how to do computational social science. If if we can learn methods and statistics, right? So what I demonstrated to them in 2014, and then I used that to create this algorithm that I'm going to present to you today, is it's necessary to create some scientific evidence that the digital behavior is actually similar to real behavior. This is the main challenge, right? How we can use biased universe to reproduce representative samples. Based on that idea, I created this IPD, Índice de Popularidade Digital, Digital Popularity Index, and the goal of the Digital Popularity Index was to reproduce real behavior, real political behavior using digital data, okay? So I'm going to describe to you my algorithm, how it works, and then I'm going to try to convince you that it actually works, right? So the first step, back in 2014, and of course that developed over time, was to collect automatically data from these 7 digital platforms. Okay, so it's X, Instagram, Facebook, Google, YouTube, Wikipedia, and TikTok. We collect data from there every day. So there is a big robot, a machine at Quest, kind of, you know, trying to get data all the time. Based on that data, I train a semi-supervised model that does the following, okay? So I get the outcome of the election, then I collect 152 variables from social media exactly in the day before the election, 1 week before the election, 1 month before the election, 1 year before the election. So we have data to train the model. We have data from different moments. And we run a bunch of simulations to ask our model to give us the right weights for each of these variables to predict the outcome of the presidential election, which was the first moment we used. So this is the outcome we got. Here we have followers in social media. Here we have likes. These are votes for each of the candidates in the Brazilian 2018 election. This is the example of the 2018 election, not the first one, the 2014. As you can see, there is a very clear pattern there. It's not true that social media behavior is completely uncorrelated with voting behavior. That's the first evidence we got. The evidence is really good. Of course, these are 2 variables. We have 157 variables. We have like millions of data to run the simulations. But as soon as the model stabilized and it was able to converge to a model that we believed was good, we did the second step of the model, which is fixing the betas, the weights for each variable, and of course, having the fixed effects and random effects of the models, and these random and fixed effects I can explain later if you are interested on that, but they are very important in the model. So fixing those numbers, the weights, the parameters, we can just plug in likes, followers in the model, or each of the 157 variables, and then predict which would be the digital popularity index for each of the candidates, right? So our idea was very simple. We had electoral outcomes, we had digital data. Why not try to guess, predict what would be the outcome of the election based on this data, compare with the real outcome, and based on the comparison of the real outcome and the predicted outcome, get the bias of the digital data, and then fix the bias to approximate it to the real world, okay? Based on that, we were able to produce these indexes, right? The first indexes we produced, this is for the 2018 election, was, you know, showing Jair Messias Bolsonaro very strong. He was the main leader of that election. The second one here, I don't know if you guys know, who are from the outside. I guess you don't know him, Luciano Huck. He is like the most important TV kind of speaker right now. He has a big TV show in TV Globo. He's very popular. So in 2018, he could be president if he wanted. Okay, I heard his wife didn't allow him to do it. Lula was the third one there. He's so our current president. So again, it was. This is in January of 2021. In that moment, we were already showing how Bolsonaro was strong at that moment. Then, after working, running analysis for presidents, we run analysis for senators to show that we could also use that. And then for governors, we also run there. Then we started running this model for deputies, mayors, councilors, and we were very excited because having the chance of following Brazilian politics in daily basis, having real evidence to do that, was helpful for the political analyst that I am, right? Instead of just having opinions, analysis of the world, I could bring with me real data about how the world is reacting to what the candidates are doing. So right here, you can see Doria, right? So Doria is the blue line. You can see that he had the peak here in the beginning of 2021. This peak is the day in which Doria announced the first Brazilian vaccine against COVID. So this is a very important day in Brazilian politics. Everybody was excited about that. And most of Brazilians were saying, look, or not Brazilians, but political analysts, look, Doria could be president of Brazil. And I was on TV saying, no, look, this is the distance between Doria and Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro is the green line, right? So even in the best day of Doria, in the entire history, he was so far from Bolsonaro in terms of digital competition, right? Then you see that the first time in 2021, when Lula surpassed Bolsonaro, this is the moment where Supreme Court gave Lula the chance of becoming candidate again. Before that, Lula was unelected. So, you know, you can see clearly that they begin the year very distant. Then the film was showing them, you know, getting together. Lula goes up. Then starts different variation times in which Lula is more competitive, Bolsonaro is more competitive. And based on that, we were analyzing the Brazilian election of 2021. That election, of course, was important because it was the second election I was using my model. So I started with 2014. I showed the politicians the data, and they were like, you know what? You might be guessing. Because how can we be sure that this data really works, right? So in 2018, I showed to them the same thing. I was showing them, look, Bolsonaro is going to win. And I said that 1 year before the election. And they were like, you know what? You're guessing. You're not doing like real political science analysis here. And I said, yes, I'm not doing political science analysis. I'm doing computational political science. I'm bringing data, strong data, a very good model. The model worked in the last electoral cycle. It's working again. But they were like, you know what? Nah, we don't believe that. We want to keep just believing in the polls because the polls are the classic way of doing electoral analysis. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to use one of the best qualities of mineiros. You know, the ones who are born in Minas are called mineiros. We are very patient. We like to wait. You know, we don't like to fight. So I was like, you know what? Okay, let's wait. So in 2018, my model predicted that Bolsonaro was going to have 56% of Brazilian vote, and Haddad was the front runner, 44%, and the election ended up 56 against 44 in the second round. So the model worked very well. And more important than that, in 2018, for the first time, a political scientist was able to predict legislative elections. Because in Brazil, it's very hard to predict who are going to be the deputies and senators because the electoral system is so complicated, right? The IPD was able to predict 94%, the winners, the red dots here, and 92% of state deputies. So this is very innovative. So for the first time, they were like, you know what? There is something here. So the politicians and the journalists were like, wow, let's check that. But again, not so convincing. So I had to wait 2 more years, 2020. In 2020, we have municipal elections in Brazil. So I had a good idea. This was one of my friend's idea. He said, Philippe, you know what you have to do? You have to do what the polls do. You have to publish your data before the election. If you publish your data before the election, they can't say you're guessing or you're guessing well, right? So publish. So I went to a local newspaper here in Belo Horizonte called O Tempo, and I asked them, do you want to publish some very new data, something that never had before? And the guy looked at me and said, why I would do that? It's so risky. I was like, because it's free. I can give you for free. You don't need to pay for it. I just give to you. And he was like, free? So let me give you a lesson. Mineiros are very patient, but we also don't like to spend money. So, we call it pão duro. We don't like to spend money here. So when I told the guy it was for free, he was like, yeah, why not? So he published the outcome that the students here are very young, so they're not going to remember that. But these outcomes were so crazy when they were published. They looked like it's impossible that to happen. Because the current mayor was very popular. And yes, my data predicted that he was going to win very well in the first round, Alexandre Calil. But all the polls were showing that this guy, João Vitor Xavier, was going to be the second most voted in that election. And my model saying, no, the second more voted will be Bruno Engler, a Bolsonarista. This guy, he might be in that election like something like 20 years old, so very young. The political journalists of the state didn't heard about it because he was an internet guy, right, at that time. So when the outcomes came out, I was able to compare my data with voting behavior, and we got 90% of correlation with a very significant pattern between my IPD and that. I was lucky enough I did the same thing in the model in São Paulo and in Rio de Janeiro, and the outcomes were also very well predicted. So I was the first one to say that Guilherme Boulos in São Paulo was going to go to the second round against Covas at that time. In Rio, no one believed that Crivella, an evangelical candidate, was going to be able to go to the second round, and this is what my IPD was showing. And again, we predicted correctly that. But still, the mainstream was so afraid, I would say, of innovation that they were like, you know what? I'm not sure. So I had to wait 2 more years to try to sell for the first time my model. And then in 2022, it was impossible to avoid the evidence, right? The black line you're seeing there is Bolsonaro behavior. The red line you're seeing there is Lula's behavior during the 2022 election. You can see the polarization from the beginning of the election to the end of the election. Sometimes Bolsonaro was in the front, sometimes Lula was in the front, until the last day of the election. Very important one, as you can see in the last week, Bolsonaro was in front of Lula. Good advantage, I would say. But you can see a peak. Lula was stable and then went up very fast. This is the night when Carla Zambelli, who is now in prison in Italy or in Spain, I don't know, Italy. So you guys are doing well. She's Italian, yeah. So, yeah, she's Italian, right? Oh, that's it, okay. So she was on the streets of São Paulo with a gun in her hands, and she kind of she followed some random guy on the street, and that image was very strong for Brazilians. Brazilians decided to change their vote in the last minute, and Lula was the winner of this very competitive election that, again, the Digital Popularity Index was showing since the beginning of the race, right? So at that moment, the newspapers decided to start publishing all that and decided to follow the tool, especially because, and this was I was very surprised, I would say, but the correlation between votes and the IPD was 99%. It's like the model behaved so well in 2022. Again, it was doing well during the municipal elections, doing well in the national election of 2018. But again, in 2022, no one went, I mean, people were very uncertain about the election. The polarization was so high. The affective polarization was so high that having this data to help politicians and Brazilians to kind of, understand what's going on was so helpful. And for us, it was so nice to see that, again, something that I was doing my PhD in the United States that then became a product, because of the developments we did in the company I founded in Brazil, was useful, not only for regular citizens, but also to political analysts and politicians. So, again, I was so happy. But of course, politics, it's something important in our life, but we don't live only based on that. So I called my team, and I have great students and great researchers that work with me at Quest. I really have a great team. I love them. And I called them and I said, you know what? Let's try to show that this tool works more than in politics. There is a very famous, popular TV show in Brazil called BBB, Big Brother Brazil. It's a reality show where you put people together in a house, they fight, they love, they drink, all that. And every week, you have to vote for one of them to be in the house or out of the house. It's like a competition, right? So I called the team and I said, you know what? We should try to predict BBB elections, right? If we could do that, they would like our model because it's not about politics anymore, it's entertainment, right? And the great outcome is that this is in 2001, we were able to predict Juliette Freire's victory in the, of course, many of you don't know who is she, but she is like a billionaire now. After the show, she was so famous that she became like something so important. And she's so nice. I really like her. I had an opportunity to talk to her about that. I said, Juliette, you saved my life because no one was understanding my models when I was doing politics. But when I predict correctly your victory in BBB, everybody said, this guy knows what he's doing. She laughed. So again, we use the IPD in this kind of situation. I'm sorry. The game was so nice because she started very low in the TV show, and very fast she was going to the up, and the distance between other competitors were really great. So I love this story because it's a good example about how you can use computational social science and specifically political science more than in our own field. We can go, above, and analyzing the correlation was really good. Until the end, the last movement we did on the IPD was something that's, I would say, in the edge in terms of social science, which is, as you know, right now you can create synthetic data, right, based on real data. And one of the questions that we were most asked in our consulting work at Quest was, you know what, I have some money, I have to spend this money, so I have to choose between investing money in a TV show like BBB for a brand. I'm trying to describe a situation where a brand asks us, I have 10 million reais I have to put in Rock in Rio, which is a big rock show concert, or I have to spend this 10 million reais at BBB. What's the best strategy for me? So what we decided to do was to create a synthetic model control in which we model the behavior of the brand. So the blue line is the real data, the real IPD of this person, so Michel Teló, right? So he's a singer in Brazil, very famous singer, and he had to decide if he wanted to be the Voice Kids judge or not, right? So what we did was we got data from Michel Teló from the last TV show, and this dotted line is the moment where the TV show started. We use a synthetic control model to model the red line, to model his behavior without the TV show, and the blue line is Michel Teló real, right? So the comparison between the synthetic data without the TV show and the real data during the show predict to us that Michel Teló, if he participates as the judge of the program, he would increase in 19% his digital popularity, which is a lot, right? Just so he will make money to increase his popularity, which will give him more money in terms of branding. We also did that for banks. So banks has money to spend. They have to decide if it's useful or not to spend money in Rock in Rio. So what we did was the orange line is the real line, the real variation of the bank. In this case, this is an example, of course. This is not real data, but let's say Itaú. And the dots are the synthetic IPD. So when we compare the real data with the synthetic data, we predict in this case 9% of increase if they spend money in this initiative. So the reason why I spend so much time in the first moment explaining to you the tools we are developing at Quest, and then showing to you one specific example in which he used large data, machine learning, natural language processing tools, statistical modeling, data processing, some, of course, creativity in terms of where to apply. Then the way we apply that above politics in the BBB TV show, the way we incorporate statistical analysis like that using synthetic data, all that are, I think, great examples of why putting together important and real questions as the ones we political scientists, sociologists, psychologists, we have, with all the tools and the wisdom that you guys in programming computer science have, it's so key to help societies to develop, right? In some places, we use that to help strategists in the market research or in politics. but also we can help voters to see patterns, to understand what's going on, so can decide better when they're voting, or buy better, consume better when they are in their behavior. So the goal of this speech today was to share with you some of these ideas to try to convince you all that we can work together, political scientists, computer scientists, to actually create real and important tools to make this world better. So thank you very much, and I hope you guys are alive. We might have questions or not.
Thank you. Very inspiring. Can we apply your model to the lottery for me?
I tried.
Okay.
That didn't work.
No?
Didn't work.
It's a pity.
I'm sorry. I tried.
Of course. Any question for Felipe? Thiago? Other. Okay, next one.
Who's first? Huh?
Good morning, Felipe and everyone. Congratulations for this presentation. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
Well, I'll have the courage of asking what I think everyone wants to ask.
What?
So, what is your guesses for the next election?
Very easy question. You know. What's your name again? Josiane. So, Josiane, I published a very important book, I would say, about politics in Brazil in 2023 called Biografia do Abismo. It's a book about how we get so polarized in Brazil, how the media helped that, how politicians helped that, how Brazilians were driven to so polarized situation. And it was for us very surprising in the book that our situation was very similar to what we observed in the United States. Besides the fact that both countries are so different in terms of political system, in terms of party system, in terms of history, the behavior of voters are becoming so similar and so polarized that looking at the United States 2 years before is helping to predict what's happening in Brazil 2 years after. Based on that, my prediction in the models we are running there showed to us that we probably will face a very competitive election. And by competitive election, I'm saying that Lula, who probably will be the candidate of the government, will have between 49 and 90 and 51%, and probably Tarcísio, who is his main competitor, will also have between 49 and 51%. So my suggestion is prepare for great emotions. It's not gonna be easy. Most of Brazilians are already calcified. They have their own positions, their passions, and there is only 5% of Brazilians right now who are willing to change their minds thinking of the next election. The rest of the electorate, 95%, already have a take on where they are going to be in the next race, either on the left or the right. And it's so splitted in the society right now that's going to be hard to predict. So I'm very worried about it, because I will be the one in TV saying, you know what, this is the one who's going to win, the lose. So I have a lot of responsibility, of course.
So many. Thiago was...
Já passa aí o...
We have a couple of hours to spend here.
No, thank you. So great.
Yeah, we spent less time talking about politics then. So, Felipe, thanks for the very engaging and inspiring talk. I have two questions, actually. First of all, I may have missed that, but you mentioned that one of the weakness of this kind of social analysis compared to traditional surveys is that you miss this kind of moderate, I mean, they are not polarized. They're not talking about politics and social media because they don't get much. They can swing from one way to the other. And so how do you solve this in your model? That's the first question. And the second one is, I mean, it's more in the sense that if you start releasing this data, and it's very accurate data, before the elections in the context of politics, what is your view on maybe influence the results in a bad direction, let's say, because the moderate candidate will look at the data and say, well, it's so polarized that it doesn't matter my vote anymore. I was ready to vote to a third option or to a fourth option, and I will give up because it won't have an influence. Thanks.
What's your name again?
Thiago.
Thiago. Thank you, Thiago. So the way we solved the problem was comparing right here. So comparing, no, this part. Comparing the prediction of the model with the real outcome. So when we get social media information, weight them and predict the outcome, so Lula 54, Bolsonaro 49, and we compare that to the real outcome, you actually get what we call house effect, which is the bias between what the social media predict and how the voters actually are voting, right? So the difference between these two outcomes is the bias we found to correct the model. Then the second part is very important. So in political science, we study a lot models of how polls and outcomes like that interact with voters. And in the past, most of the data, most of the research pointed to a direction in which, yes, people liked to vote for the winner. So they tended to look, they say, oh, you know what? I'm not going to pay attention on anything because I don't understand. In the last day, I see who is winning, and then I vote for it. This was a very common behavior. And political scientists were so sad about that because, you know, we like voters that are active, that are looking for information, who are participating in politics, right? So we fought so much for that, that right now, everybody has opinion about politics. Everybody thinks that they are the expert. Everybody made opinions. And we live now in an era of a confirmation bias, which is, I'm right, I'm going to look in the world, into the data that confirm what I think it's right. It's not the opposite anymore. It's not about Felipe publishing data that will help voters to vote, you know, in one way or the other. Right now what happens is when I publish polls, the voters who like the outcome say, great, I'm right. The voters who don't like the outcome say, oh my gosh, this guy is so bad, he doesn't know what he's doing, his polls are all wrong. So the confirmation bias is actually changed the way this question is made. Right now, my challenge is not anymore to be careful in terms of my data. Oh, I have to say that I'm not mobilizing or convincing anyone. Right now I have to say, please, trust, I'm right. Look at my history. Look at what I did in the past. I mean, it's quite the opposite, unfortunately.
Interesting discussion.
Okay, maybe a quick one. Thank you for the very inspiring talk. I was wondering, as you said, that some things are reflecting. So if we look to the US, we can see how things will be. And some events are weirdly specific. I think that in both elections, 2018 and then the last one in the US, there were 2 murder attempts to the candidates. So I was wondering if you ever thought about like modeling how specific events can affect the data of the, or like the outcome of the election, because some things are starting to seem really, like really similar in an oddly way.
Unfortunately.
So, yeah, thank you.
What's your name again?
Aime.
Aime? Aime, the first thing I have to say is I'm afraid. I'm scared. As political scientists, I never thought about the idea of living in a democracy, even in the US where I lived, or in the Brazil where I live right now, and I was born, where we have to, be worried about our opinions. And this is happening right now. In the US, this week, digital influencer was shot, when he was expressing freely his ideas. You might agree or disagree with him, but again, he was just doing the right way, right? Talking, convincing, explaining. The same thing happened in Brazil. I mean, we had the president with a knife. So again, I'm afraid and I'm scared about all that. And that's so sad because democracy is about tolerance. Democracy is about listening the other side. Democracy is about enjoying the debate. You might not agree with the other one, but he's the other one. It's important to be there. That said, I have 2 students doing dissertations right now about specifically that. So one of them is getting IPD model and applying it to social media in the US. So instead of trying to predict Lula and Bolsonaro, he's trying to predict Trump and Biden in the last election using the same data. And then he used the exogenous effects of the word to model, for example, when Biden left the campaign, so this was a big shock. So he was trying to see how voters reacted. We had some violence in Pennsylvania in the election, the shooting of Trump. So he's using all these exogenous shocks and trying to model to see what happens in the election. And the other student is doing the same thing in Brazil. So so he's trying to, using the same model in the very old data right now, it's 2014. You might not remember because you're so young, but Eduardo Campos was presidential candidate and he was in an aircraft accident, right? So he was out of that election, and then he's also studying the effect of the knife of Bolsonaro in 2018 election. And his first outcomes showed to us that without the knife attempt, Bolsonaro would have lost the election. Just to give you a sense of how important this kind of event.
Next, are you still? Okay, Stefan?
Is that okay?
Oh.
Actually, so my name is Hua Tong. I want to ask a question not related about your data. Actually, it's about your entrepreneurship practice. So I hope that maybe give another angle to your talk because you are a political scientist and you are applying your theory into a innovation practice or entrepreneurship company. So what do you see the big challenge you have faced here in Brazil? I think you were a political science professor in UCSD, so you know a lot of people are actually doing this kind of entrepreneurship practice in the United States too. But I think political scientists are not necessarily successful in this type of business. I'm thinking about the author who is doing bit by bit. He seemed to get more money from Sage Foundation, not necessarily. I don't know whether he has his own company. So I'm just curious about how you review your entrepreneurship practice here. Want to hear more. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. I love to talk about that because you're totally right. I mean, when I go to a hotel and they say, who are you? You have to say, I say, I'm professor. I'm professor. I never say I'm an entrepreneur or, like I have a company. It's weird to me. I don't feel that way, right? And the reason why I don't feel that way is because I'm not. I had to learn to put together, finance and HR, kind of departments. I had to learn how to get money in the market to invest. It's so weird, right? I was trained to solve problems in statistics and create analysis in political science. So the first challenge I faced was to understand what I had to do in order to have a company, right? And you have to change your mind, because the goal and the timing of a political scientist, a professor, it's so different. This last year, I had a paper published in Journal of Experimental Political Science. Is one of the top tier journals in the US that deals with experiments. And me and my co-authors, we got an award. Best paper of the year, blah, blah. So when we got together to celebrate, we were like, what is this article about? Because, I mean, we run that stuff like 3 years ago. And then, you know, in order to publish, you have to fix everything, right? And then your reviewers look at your work, and then you get back, and then you change stuff. And then in order to be published, so it takes so long. And this is so important, right? I mean, the academic work needs this rigorous method and the exchange, all that. But in the market, I had to change my mind. I had to, understand that my clients, they want rigorous answers, but they want like in one day. So besides all the problems of having a company in Brazil, like paying taxes, hiring people, training people, maintaining a space, you know, all these big challenges. The other one was to understand that in order to be good in the market, you have to have the rigorous ethics of the academia, of the academic, but also you have to be way faster in terms of giving outcomes to the client. So, you know, dealing with all that was really hard for me, at least in the beginning. Thank you.
Just a couple of
Thank you, Philippe, for that very societal and political important work.
Thank you.
I'm Stefan, I'm from Germany.
Germany?
Yeah, and we are also very carefully looking at this thing what Thiago mentioned, how can such services influence voters' behavior. And the one company we are particularly looking carefully at from Europe to the US is Cambridge Analytica.
Of course.
And you probably look at them as well as a competitor or maybe, I don't know, benchmark or whatever. But I would like to learn a bit about how your work differs from what they do, and maybe whether there are any measures in order to prevent the influence factor.
Yeah, no, I mean, Cambridge Analytica is, in our word, a reference. You might like what they do, you might don't like, but they are a reference. Why? Because, first of all, they are based on a very important academic paper that was published in the 70s. It's a paper from a Stanford professor. So a student got that and created all the technology to influentiate voters in the first, I would say, a main job that they had was in England. Then they spread to Europe, then in the US and all that, right? So at Quest, there is one thing that we never missed, which is voters need information. We want to provide information to them, but there is a limit. The first limit is it has to be correct, factually correct. You can't create reality. You can't create narrative. You can't, this is not our work, right? Our work is to say, look, Brazil right now have 50% of voters who hate Bolsonaro and 50% of voters who love Lula, or love Bolsonaro in this case. My goal is to be precise in terms of the 50%. It's not 45%, it's 50, right? It's not 42, it's 50. And the reason why this is so important for us is because when you don't work well in terms of the target you have, that is, our work is inform, not to disinform people. you understand until where you have to go. So this is one limit that's very important. The second limit is we don't, we inform the general population, but we never work exclusively for any candidate, okay? And why is that? This might look weird, but it's important. If I work exclusively, if I sign a contract and get paid to work for one side, it's inevitable that my analysis and my energy will be driven to make this side to win. So in politics, when you do that, you will do whatever you have to do to win. When you don't allow that in your company, when you say, you can hire me, I can give you some information, but if this side also wants the same information, I'm going to sell to them the same price, the same data, everything similar. You avoid to work the data in a way that is helpful to one side or the other. So the rule at Quest is, it doesn't matter the side, we just run data, right? So it doesn't matter if the right or the left, the center, if they come to us and say, what's happening, the answer will be similar. So in that terms, we are very different from Cambridge Analytica because they are hired from one side to run campaigns. We don't do that. But they do, they are good at what they do.
Do we have the time for the very last? Okay. Last quick question.
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Unfortunately. With a different name that we don't know yet which name it is. But yeah, they were close. They had a big scandal. It was because besides then the real work they did, the main problem was that they stole data from Meta and used that in a way that it's impossible to do. It's not right to do. So they had to pay for that, for sure.
Okay, so thank you very much for your presentation.
My pleasure.
My name is Patricia Jacques. And so I work on emotional artificial intelligence.
Wow,
Yeah.
we have to talk. I want to learn from you.
Yes, I'd like to. So I'm curious if you consider this kind of variables, emotions, personality traits, and a little about how do you compose your model, how do you choose your variables? It's a completely data-driven approach, or it's a mixed approach? I'd like to
Patricia, first of all, send me a message at my Instagram. We have to talk. Because I always like to learn from someone who is doing this kind of work. It would be great to talk to you. So yes, the way we deal with modeling in political science is deductive way, which is we have theories, we have ideas, and these theories and ideas drive the choices we make, right? So part of my team are political scientists, sociologists, psychologists. So they are reading the word, they're trying to create theories about behavior, and then we try to create the data to test this theory. But half of the team are composed by computer scientists, statisticians, AI kind of, all that, neuroscientists, and this other part of the lab working the other way, more data-driven kind of choices. So what we created at Quest was an environment where the data-driven and the deductive people work together and they fight to make sure that their way of doing it is better than the other way. And this scientific competition helps the company to make good choices. So every week we have a big meeting where one side presents their work, the other side presents their work, and then we debate. There is a part of the team that doesn't touch the data, either this side or the other side. We just like watch them fighting. And then we make criticism, we discuss, we give ideas. And based on that, we learn a lot. Sometimes the deductive way, the hypothesis testing model helps more. In other moments, the data-driven way of doing it helps more. So I'm very agnostic in terms of methodology. So I just care about rigorous. If you are very rigorous in your method, you show me how you get where you got, I will learn from you. That's my way of thinking. So it doesn't matter which paradigm you're working. Sometimes, this paradigm is better for some problems. This time, this is better. So I like to learn from both. In terms of emotions and traits, Cambridge Analytics, it's exactly about that, right? What they did was getting the ocean model and develop a way for predicting personality and all that. So I'm going to use this, maybe last question, to invite you to the publication of my next book, which is a large study in Brazil about personalities, traits, values, and attitudes. The book will be published in October. We interviewed like 15,000 Brazilians. We run lots of experiments on them in order to really understand, who we are in terms of personality traits, values, attitudes, preferences, and all that. So I hope you enjoy the book. It might not be perfect, but I like it. It's a good thing. So in October, we'll be there. I hope you guys come from Germany to the we don't, we have big problems with Germans in Belo Horizonte. You know that, right? Okay. So just to make sure, because I was in that game in 2014. I was there. Here in the stadium, you should visit because for you it's very important. I hate that place. And I was like, I can't imagine how is that possible. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. I was like, what's going on? 5, 6. So you know what I did? I have I could show you some pictures about that day. I decided, you know what? I'm going to drink like a German today. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Is there any gift to give?
Thank you. Oh, gift for me. Obrigado. Can we take a picture like this? Do you guys allow? Yeah? Because this is important nowadays. Look at that. Thank you very much.